Listen, y'all, as lesbians, as queer folks, we need to come together and stop this. I love reading sapphic books, but unfortunately, I have a few problems. So today I'm going to talk about four problems I have. Some are with the authors of these books, while others are with us, the readers. So who am I in this conversation? I'm a lesbian who has a sapphic shelf of her own. And personally, I have four problems that I want to get off my chest, so let's get into it. My first issue is the coming out narrative. We've all been there. Coming out can be hard, and everyone's experience looks different. We see this storyline in a lot of sapphic books, and it often comes with both highs and lows. Sometimes the main character has immense internal conflict, fear of rejection, or maybe they are extremely supportive, but this is not my point. The point is that readers seem to love nitpicking the coming out experience as if there is a universal way to experience coming out against societal norms in this extremely divided society that we live in today. Not to mention that not everyone is privileged enough to have the luxury of coming out. And when we see this in books, the book seems to get reviews like these. Most of these reviews come from a book where the main character is scared to live in her truth as a lesbian due to religious and societal expectations and ends up dating a man instead for a while the true love of her life is a woman. Now, this made people upset. I can understand that. I can understand that this is messy. Feelings are involved. But as someone in the community, I think we should have grace for these main characters in these books, just as we would if they existed in real life. But because they only exist on paper, I think people get overcritical of how they should move and behave. But does this mean that we should negatively rate a book just because the coming out narrative upset us? No, I personally don't think so. And another common narrative in sapphic stories, especially sapphic romance novels, is when one person in the relationship is ready to come out and the other isn't. And people will get genuinely upset reading about this. And is it okay to experience both positive and negative emotions when reading a book and to think critically about this? Of course, but to leave negative reviews and ratings on an author's book just because you didn't like how their queer coming out storyline is a bit much. Lesbians can be messy in real life, so they will be messy in books. They will be scared to come out, and yes, they might hurt people, feelings in the process. But y'all, it's a book, and lesbian authors do not owe us a perfect coming out arc every book we read. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I just see the best in all these fictional characters. Moving on to problem number two, let's call this one label politics. And y'all, I do actually get the frustration with this one. So I've been seeing discourse online about how people are upset when a book is marketed as a lesbian read, when in reality it's just a sapphic read. And yes, there is definitely a difference. So sapphic is a connection between two women, but one could be bi or pan, or even both women could not identify as being lesbians. One might be bisexual and the other queer. So no, a book with characters identifying like this would not be a lesbian love story, despite there being a romance connection involving two women. So yeah, it is valid for someone to be upset if they wanted to read a book with lesbian representation in it and it was being marketed as such just for it to be sapphic. However, from my personal experience, and y'all let me know y'all's, but from my personal experience, I don't really see authors deceiving readers with their marketing, but I do very often find it hard from book summaries or authors post about their books to distinguish if a book is actually lesbian or just sapphic. And I feel like nowadays, a lot of the mainstream ones are leaning more sapphic. And don't get me wrong, I personally still enjoy reading these books, but as a lesbian, I definitely would prefer if authors were more clear, not only in their marketing, but even in their summaries. But at the same time, do authors really owe us identity politics before we even start reading their book? I don't know. I can see both sides. It's a bit tricky. There's been numerous times where I try to figure out if a story is sapphic or lesbian, and I cannot easily find this information. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. I am genuinely curious. Problem number three is the lack of stud for butch or for mask representation, for lack of better words. Basically, we need more books where two masculine women fall for each other. I've read lots of sapphic books, and I can only think of two off of the top of my head that are like this because they are just less frequent to come by. And here are my three theories as to why this is. Theory number one, I think maybe authors are afraid it won't sell, so they don't write it. Theory number two, authors are writing these types of stories, but the big publishing companies aren't picking them up because they think it won't sell, meaning maybe an author has to self publish it, making it harder to find. I'm not too sure how the behind the scenes of writing and selling a book works, so this is just a theory. But theory number three, is that we simply don't have a lot of these stories because there's still a stigma in society around these types of relationships, not only from people who are not a part of the queer community, but unfortunately, we see this hate even from people who do identify as queer. I've seen people frown upon it sometimes or say it makes them uncomfortable, which is so wrong. We as a community already have to deal with people pushing heteronormative expectations and roles onto our queer relationships with comments like, who's the man in this relationship? When in reality, it's two women, that type of thing. And so I do think that the world at times is still struggling to accept these types of relationships. And maybe that's why there's a lack of representation in the book world of these types of couples. But I really hope to see this change in the future. So, authors, if you're hearing this, please write these stories because I will read them. So, my final problem is the good representation standard. I have read so many good books with lower ratings than they deserve due to what I'm calling the good representation standard. Listen, y'all, I love critical thinking. I really do, and so should you. You should be critiquing these books. But rating a book 1 star because you didn't like how a small issue in the book was handled is a bit harsh. If we want more sapphic books to be published, then we have to show these companies that we like these books. Now, I don't want us to inflate ratings either. Me personally, I take off stars when I rate a book if I don't like the writing style or pacing mostly, if there's grammatical errors, or if it was simply boring, that type of thing. But I'm not going to leave a 1 star rating or honestly anything less than 3 stars on most lesbian books because I want lesbian books to be published. And authors, contrary to popular belief, actually do tend to get better with each book they write. So, am I here for rating books correctly? Yes. If you want to give a 1 star, that's okay. I digress. But I've seen reviews where people give bad ratings due to people feeling a need for good representation. For example, this review gave a 1 star for not liking a character's personality. If you thought the writing style was so bad to give it a 1 star, then I guess. But to add in your 1 star review that you don't like fuckboy personalities and lesbians, that doesn't mean the book was bad. And now the author has a 1 star review. Like, authors don't owe us good representation. They don't have to make each fictional character a great person with amazing morals. Don't get me wrong. I love a wholesome read. I might even say I prefer them, at least when it comes to romance novels, but people enjoy morally gray characters as well. Another thing, when it comes to 1 star ratings, can we at least explain ourselves? I've seen on Goodreads tons of 1 star ratings with no feedback on it. If we are going to judge an author's work and rate it as low as possible, the least we could do is give them some type of feedback on how to improve for next time. 1 star reviews that actually provide critiques are so valid. I mean, people write whole essays in those 1 star reviews sometimes. But I feel like I'm rambling. My main point is that I think as a community, we should make sure our ratings are actually valid and constructive. That's all. But if you're looking for more sapphic books to add to your TBR, check out this video.